Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. DeJoy and Ms. Hull, for joining us here today to discuss the state of the U.S. Postal Service. When the Continental Congress established it, it was more than just a horseback-driven system for sending personal letters. The Post Office created the communications network that made the committees of correspondence possible, that integrated the strategies of military commanders with public servants, and that established the National Postal Roads Transportation Network. The Post Office also promoted the free press by ensuring the very low-cost distribution of news to the public at special rates. A luminary no less striking than Benjamin Franklin, the inventor of the electric lightning rod, the lending library, the volunteer fire department, and the bifocals, became the first Postmaster General to improve delivery routes and to speed up service to connect the new nation. 249 years later, the Postal Service is still an essential institution for Americans. Its mission is set forth in the Constitution. It's laid out in specifics in federal code, which charges the Postal Service with providing prompt, reliable, and efficient services to patrons in all areas and shall render postal service to all communities. During COVID, the Postal Service was ranked America's most essential institution. People rely on the Postal Service to transact critical business, including bank statements and legal notices, life-saving prescription medicines, and notifications of data breaches. The Postal Service can reach every address in America, 167 million residences, businesses, and P.O. boxes. Its value is essential to the economy and the society, especially to people who live in the most hard-to-reach rural places. Efficiency, reliability, and stability are critical to meeting the needs of the public and required for ensuring the long-term survival and adaptability of the Post Office. The Postal Service has been operating in an unsustainable manner for a long time. When President Trump named Postmaster DeJoy in 2020, the Postal Service was then in need of reform. In response, Postmaster DeJoy launched the 10-year Delivering for America plan. He has stated repeatedly that the Postal Service, quote, must operate in many ways like a private business. Of course, some private businesses succeed and others go bankrupt. Congress passed the bipartisan Postal Service Reform Act in 2022. This helped the Postal Service avoid imminent financial collapse and gave Postmaster DeJoy runway to implement his plan for success. The law helped the Postal Service progress towards graduating from the GAO's high-risk list, which ranks government operations most vulnerable to waste, fraud, and abuse, and getting off that list is indeed hard to accomplish. Despite all these bipartisan efforts, it seems that Postmaster DeJoy has failed to use all of this new discretion and resources effectively. His changes to the delivery network have resulted in a disastrous decline in on-time delivery in many regions of the country. And we members of Congress hear about it all the time from our constituents, the lost paychecks, the bills that go unpaid because they're never delivered, the business chaos, the personal disruptions. Bipartisan concerns now about DeJoy's plan changes prompted a delay in the activation of mail processing and delivery hubs through the end of the election and holiday season. The Postmaster General anticipated that these delays would be temporary and all in service of getting the Postal Service to break even financially. 3 years into his plan, however, the financial condition of the Postal Service is astoundingly bad and much worse than all of his initial projections. Postmaster DeJoy projected in his original Delivering for America plan that the Postal Service would reach break even by 2023 or 2024. Instead, the Postal Service's net loss of $950 million from operations in FY 2022 increased to a whopping $9.5 billion net loss in FY 2024. That's a 900% increase in the Postal Service's losses in a 2-year time span. Postmaster DeJoy's Delivering for America plan changed delivery standards for first-class mail from 2 to 3 days to 3 to 5 days. Mr. DeJoy claimed that the new standards would make it possible for the Postal Service to reach its 95% on-time mail delivery goals nationwide. Yet today, not a single one of the 50 Postal Service districts in the United States is meeting the Postal Service's self-designed 95% service standard. Meanwhile, the Postal Service increased prices for mail and packages in July. Another price increase for packages will go into effect, incredibly, in January of next year. In other words, under Mr. DeJoy's leadership, Americans are paying higher prices for worse service. More than 3 years into delivering for America's implementation, with more than 150 ongoing projects initiated to meet the Postmaster's goals, customers are still seeing a decline in mail delivery service, and they're paying higher costs for it. The Postmaster General's plan isn't working, but Mr. DeJoy continues to drive everything in the wrong direction. In the last month, the Postal Service announced its intention to lower service performance targets for FY 2025 by as much as 15% among certain first-class mail products, the lowest performance targets ever, excluding the COVID-19 period. Mr. DeJoy's leadership of the Postal Service is an alarming example of what we may see coming in the next term, sticking to the mega playbook of treating essential government functions with cavalier recklessness and ignoring the differences between a private sector company and a public good. I do want to take a moment to recognize and applaud the valiant efforts of postal management and employees to deliver election mail during the 2024 election season. I also want to commend Inspector General Hall for the office's exceptional audit work during the election season to ensure the Postal Service had ample resources and insights to promptly deliver election mail and make adjustments where necessary. When the Postal Service meets its mission, America benefits. And my colleagues and I all want the Post Office to work for our constituents and our communities. As the Postal Service works to build a resilient operation, it must fulfill its obligations to the people and ensure that we all have reliable mail delivery as a pillar of a successful American economy and society. I look forward to today's interaction, and I yield back to you, Mr. Chairman.